Hello everybody, welcome back to another reasonable price prediction, the series where we try to figure out where your favorite altcoins could be headed. Now today we are back with THORChain, and thank you very much for the comments reminding me to revisit this coin. It's been about a month, so well overdue a checkup. And I'm going to start this video by talking about what I got wrong in my last video, which is a couple of things. And while I still got parts of things right, like I predicted upward movements and they happened, I just got the magnitude wrong. And we'll get into that. So kind of the first one that I want to talk about is this general move, the range that THORChain moved within from its low up to the halving. Now last video was about a month ago. So we had about up to here worth of data where this first red week was, even before potentially. So the highest point we had up to this point was here, which set about a 700% move from the low to this high. And that was a move from 82 cents up to $7, about 700%, 750. If we look at the last cycle, we can see that the range THORChain operated within was 1400%. So it made a move from basically 1 cent up to 12 cents, and it was a bit lower than 1 cent. So it basically 1400% is the move that THORChain operated in from its low to the high before the halving. And I saw this as potentially diminishing returns, and this is common throughout all markets. As an asset grows older and more successful, the returns that you can experience diminish, the volatility diminishes. And I saw this as basically 700 is half of 1400. I saw this as diminishing returns of roughly 50%. So I kind of went with the idea of cutting all our moves in half. So if we had a 400% move here, we could expect a 200% move here. And that did hold up for a while. It did hold up. And if you rewatch that video, you can see a lot of circumstantial evidence that corroborates that theory. But of course, now looking at it today, there's much kind of better data to look at. We have more information that tells a different story. For example, this 389% move to the upside. This measures the low that kind of THORChain sets to the second low, the second support. And of course down here, this first cycle, the green measures the same thing. They're basically similar moves. They're exactly the same. They 400% of a move from this first low to the second low. Another thing that I got mostly wrong is this resistance here that we talked about last cycle. Last cycle, if we take a look, THORChain kind of set in a high after moving from this low, a continuous high, a very strong move to the upside, where it basically made this 1400% move. And it set in a resistance that we didn't break above until after the halving, but we did test multiple times before breaking above, and this spanned over 22 weeks. I basically took this again and applied it to what we were currently going through, and of course we hadn't had this strong move to the upside at that point, but I said most likely if THORChain is going to play out how it did last cycle, we're not going to break above this line, or at least not significantly. And of course, you know, I'm totally wrong. We definitely broke above very significantly, but it was interesting that kind of it played out in very similar ways up until that point. I mean, even down to the 22 weeks before the halving, we set in a high. Same kind of story over here with the 400% move to the upside, the 1400% move in total to the upside. A lot of stuff playing out very similarly. We did propose, however, that THORChain could follow this support that I drew in, and that was kind of the contrary idea to the video that I gave. I said you could kind of disregard this information and just expect THORChain to follow this trend upwards into the halving, which wasn't unreasonable, and you know, with 2020 hindsight, was the better call or the more accurate call, because that's exactly what THORChain has done. It's just rode this wave up. Again, there's still lots of similarities. Like if we take a look at this dip here 7 weeks before the halving, we said most likely we will see some sort of a retracement or a low 7 to 8 weeks before the halving, and we got that. THORChain started its reversal, its sort of bullish movements during a similar time frame, so about 33 weeks before the halving. Here it was a bit longer, 37, but again, in such large numbers, a week here or there isn't too important. It doesn't disprove anything. And finally, if we kind of take a look at what is happening, we can see that THORChain has definitely reverted to a more bullish state. It looks a lot like it did back here before the halving, like we've spent the last 5 minutes talking about. It looks very similar to how it does before this last halving. We can see after the last halving, THORChain continued to make wicked gains of upwards of basically 15,000% moves, you know, close to 20,000% moves from the halving price of 10 cents. Now, THORChain is of course a lot more expensive than that now. It's currently riding at close to $9. It's $8.80. And if you're going to expect a 20,000% move, you're going to have a lot of trouble pricing that on a chart like this. If we take THORChain's current price of basically $8 and give it a 10,000% or a 20,000% move, you're going to have a THORChain that is basically Ethereum's price during the bear market, $2,000. Now, me personally, I don't think that's possible. I think that's way too high. But I was wrong before about kind of the price movements to expect THORChain to go through during the halving. So again, it's down to what you think is reasonable and what you think is plausible. This is crypto after all. You know, with how bullish THORChain has been going, maybe a triple-digit Rune could be sort of the upper limit that I see. I mean, that's still more than a 10x away. And considering that THORChain has basically done a 14x already, a 14x on top of a 10x, you know, is a lot of x's. And I don't think you can really ask more from an altcoin that has already been around for one cycle to do a 140x. I think that's the upper limit, if you will, for an altcoin that's already been around for a cycle. Like, it's much easier for something new and shiny to burst through these sort of crazy price resistances and just put in high after high after high. But THORChain has basically been a cryptocurrency that's been around for over 4 years. It's very unheard of for, you know, alts to make crazy moves like this continuously. So I would temper your expectations. I personally would have sold all my Rune before it ever reaches triple digits this cycle. And full disclosure, I do own Rune. And I was very lucky. I bought a lot of Rune when it was cheap. I think I got it around $1.80, $1.90 before it really took off. I will probably realistically sell the majority of my Rune by the time it reaches $60. If it reaches $60, that's a price that I am very comfortable taking profits at. And it's also a price that I don't think is too unreasonable. It's just below a 8x from current prices, below that. In fact, it's below a 7x, from current prices. I think that's doable over the next year if we have bullish moves now. If I'm wrong and Rune goes up to triple digits, hopefully I've saved a little bit and I'll be very happy to sell at that price too. But that's what I am planning for. But again, the signs are pointing towards Rune is now in a bull run. It has been for the last 33 weeks, or in this case, yeah, basically 33 weeks because we're about 4 weeks away from the halving. And there are no signs of it slowing down at the moment. Now, of course, anything can happen in crypto. Bad news can come from anywhere and change the market like that. I personally am still bullish on Rune. And even if there is some sort of a serious correction and we go back down to like $3, $4, I would argue that's just another good price to get in at. But hopefully that doesn't happen, and I don't think it will either. Now, taking a look at the Bitcoin pair, again, going over what we said in the last video, we mainly focused on sort of this area here, again, leading up towards the halving. And the thing that we spoke about most, or leaned into the most, was this kind of testing of this upper range and then breaking above it after the halving. And another key thing was this sort of red ascending wedge, the supports that we drew. And we said Rune could very much play out this way, the current cycle. And if we take a look at what was going on with Rune, we can see that, of course, we had this ascending wedge that we obviously broke below that I was talking about in the last video. But we did bounce off this support, and now we're back within this range that Rune was previously operating within. And unlike the US dollar pair, it's not as bullish on the Bitcoin pair. In the video, we did also talk about, basically, we'll probably most likely see a support from the ascending wedge or the general trend that Rune was following. It turned out to be the general trend, and now we're back on track to probably test this resistance, this blue line that Rune put in at the end of last year, November time. After that, our kind of next big resistance would be this 25,000 Satoshi level that Rune got rejected at multiple times during the last bull/bear run. We can see that Rune peaked out pretty early against BTC, and then even though its performance was stellar, it still did lose value against Bitcoin for the majority of the bull run year. It peaked out in May, which just wasn't too uncommon, and kind of held within the range of 10,000 Satoshis and 25,000 Satoshis up until June of 2022, when it eventually broke down and we came back to this low, which then seemed to complete the cycle of what we saw and put us back into similar price action that we saw at Rune's inception on its Bitcoin pair. So again, in terms of what you can expect based on past performance with Rune leading up to the halving, we can see last cycle we tested this upper bound. We could potentially do that before the halving. Realistically, it'll probably be afterwards. At that point, we might just break straight above it. I don't know. But I would probably expect that we don't make any significant moves in the next few weeks. I could always be wrong. I think we'll probably just push above after the halving. And again, kind of make this resistance our support. Or we might even move up to the 25,000 Satoshi level and make that our support. As we can see last time, when Rune broke above this original blue line, which was at 1,700 Satoshis, we just blew straight above it and never came back to it. And we kind of found our supports at the next resistance. So we broke above the next resistance and then came back down to it as a support. That looks very much what this guy is like. Now, the kind of key outlier here is that this blue line to this green line originally was about an 80% of a move. It's a much smaller move percentage-wise here. I think it's 30. Yep, about 31% of a move. So in terms of that, much more attainable. And then after that, it's not far at all from kind of breaking above its all-time highs on its Bitcoin pair. Only about a 75% move from there. The all-time highs being about 48,000 Satoshis against Rune. I think this is very possible. I think personally we will see Rune break above this previous 48,000 Satoshi level. It might not be by too much. It might only go to say 60,000 Satoshis, but I think we are on course to see a very strong Rune this bull market, or at least we have been so far. It's performed stellar. And, you know, just again, in terms of how much of a move it currently has to make to get back to its all-time high, it's 276%, which may seem like a lot, but on an altcoin, on a Bitcoin pair, when these guys have 10x rallies, 15x rallies, 20x rallies, Bitcoin just can't keep up and they usually rocket above. It's just kind of something that we will have to wait and see with, but I don't want to ramble too long, so I'm going to wrap up the video here. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Comment down below what video you want next, or if there's something that I missed with Rune, whether that's an update coming down the road, or just something in the charts that you think would be useful to point out. I'd love to hear what you guys think and see, because I am not all-knowing. I know very little, actually. So I love chatting to you guys and learning from you, basically, and hopefully vice versa. So thanks very much, guys. Take care and peace.